Today's Daily Dose of Math is about repeating decimals. But within the context of an exercise that my students get to, where they are being asked to convert between decimal, percent, and fraction. Now I have another video that shows the steps of converting between decimal, percent, and fraction. In this video I'm going to focus on some of the common small fractions that the student has to be able to deal with. The fractions I've chosen all have 1 as the numerator, and the denominators are the digits from 1 through 9. Starting with 1. Of course, in math, something special always happens when you deal with number 1, and this is not an exception. 1 divided by 1 is 1. And if we want to write it with a decimal, the decimal happens here after the 1. If we want to convert this to a percentage, we're multiplying it by 100, or we're moving the decimal 2 spaces to the right. So we have to put 2 zeros here, and we end up with 100%. So 1 is 100%. Now, when we do 1 divided by 2, we get 0.5. Moving the decimal 2 spaces to the right means that we're going to get 50%. And of course, multiplying by 100 and moving the decimal 2 spaces to the right are the same thing. Then we get to the first one where something a little weird happens. 1 divided by 3 gives you 0.3333, and it goes on and on. And you can prove this in a simple way simply by dividing 1 divided by 3 in a calculator or by doing long division. To convert that into a more easily readable decimal, we have a trick where we say that is equal to 0.3 repeating. And this line over the 3 shows what part of the number keeps repeating. So we learn to read this and realize, oh, if we have this, it means we have that. Because these 3's keep repeating forever, and it's impossible to write it down. So 0.3 repeating is a useful little shorthand that allows us to correctly write the number without writing forever. And then we're doing the same thing when we convert to percentage. We're multiplying by 100 or moving the decimal 2 spaces to the right, and we get 33.3%. Now, really, this 3 is repeating. But in the exercise where a student is being asked to prove that they can convert 1/3 into a decimal and into a percent, it's enough for them to give this as their answer. And in fact, if the student just gives 33% as their answer, rounding a little higher, it's still correct. 1/4 gives 0.25. So we don't have a repeating decimal here. And when we convert to percent, it's 25%. So that's straightforward. 1/5 is also straightforward. It gives us 0.2, and that turns into 20%. Then we get to 1/6, and what happens with 1/6 is similar to what happens with 1/3, but not exactly the same. When we divide it, we get 0.16666, and it keeps on going. So the 1 doesn't repeat, but the 6 does. And when we want to write that as a repeating decimal, we write 0.16 repeating. So the little line is only on top of the 6 because the 6 is the only part that keeps repeating. And then when we convert to percent, it becomes 16.7%. We have to round, so the 6 that happens here is bumped up to a 7. 1/7 at first looks like it's not giving a repeating decimal. When we divide 1 by 7, we get 0.142857. And then 14287, and it keeps going. So this is a rather strange repeating decimal, but it's just like the others. We can write it as a repeating decimal, but the amount that we have to write to show the repeating pattern is bigger. So the entire string of 6 digits, 142857, repeats. And then when we convert into a percentage, it becomes 14.3%. Again, I had to round. So the 8 forced me to turn that 2 into a 3. 1/8 becomes easy by comparison. It gives 0.125, and that's it. And then when we convert to fraction, it's 12.5%. But this one's more accurate because it didn't have to round. And then 1/9 is another repeating decimal. It gives us 0.1111, and it goes on, which means 0.1 repeating. And that will convert into 11.1%. I didn't have to bump the 1 up because the number after it was a 1, but this is still a rounded value. These conversions should be good enough to avoid losing marks because of them, and it's very useful to feel familiar with some of the common smaller number situations that you get to in math, so that when you encounter something like this, you know what to do. That's today's Daily Dose of Math. Please like, subscribe, and share.